And we are live. Welcome to our final tea time of translations. You've got Team Mad Lana on board. We are sipping our drinks and we'll find out what they are in a little bit. My name is Alana Francis, she, her. I am your development community outreach manager for $3 Bill Cinema. We are super excited to be welcoming you all today and to have had a wonderful festival.
Yes, and hi, my name is Maddie Schmidt. You might recognize both of us from the video that you watched ahead of the films. I am the Program and Operations Coordinator for $3 Bill Cinema, and I'm so excited to be live with everyone today. Start off the morning for our final day of the fest. I can't believe it's here.
Ah!
Wow,
I know.
We
made it.
We have our drinks ready. I got my Zodiac saucer.
We're ready to go. We are ready to go. $3 Bill Cinema has been working really hard into this year to really be providing community-based representation, film all across the board, really strengthening our relationships, looking at ourselves and seeing where we could evolve, and really being able to push ourselves to create fantastic festivals that are accessible across international and national realms. And really excited to be able to continue that work and looking for folks to always connect with us and be able to make magic with us, because that's what we're all about. And we have wonderful guests joining us today to showcase that.
Yes, let's bring on some of the people who helped make this festival possible. We have our co-lead programmers, Mocha J. Harrop and Cooper Seeley, and some filmmakers with us as well today. We have Ray, who directed Put the Brights On, and Deb Simone, who directed The More Things Change. Let's bring everybody in. Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. We are so excited to have you all join us today.
Thank you.
It's the last day. I can't believe Deb's gone.
Deb is going to be our just like magician, just in and out.
Yeah.
I've been like this between festival stuff as palate cleansers. I've been binging Bewitched.
Oh my God.
From my childhood.
Yes. Wow.
So the idea of people popping in and out is just like, oh, that happens all the time, doesn't it? Oh yeah. Because right? Because television and COVID. And technology.
Yeah, you're all here with me right now. What are you talking about? You could be gone, but you're here. Exactly. Well, perfect.
Yeah, Deb will be back. I'm so glad to be with everyone. Ray, pleasure to meet you. Your piece. Oh my God, I can't wait to start talking about it. Really great.
Oh, thanks, Cooper. Yeah, it's great to meet you after, texting a little bit and,
right.
Saying hello to people virtually for forever, feels like. But great to be here and so honored to be in this group of films this year. Just like a lot of really great work. So thanks for having me. Yeah.
Ray, I'm so thrilled that you're here. And I know that you lived in Minneapolis in the mid-90s, as did I. I'm wondering, did you ever do anything with Vulva Riot, that like cabaret that used to happen? Was that your scene?
So I actually did not live in Minneapolis in the 90s. I lived in San Francisco.
Okay. Okay, and now you're in greater Minnesota. Okay.
Now I'm in northwestern Minnesota, so not in Minneapolis, although I do head down there as much as I can. Awesome. I love Minneapolis, so yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, at the beginning of your film, it says density over duration. That's your production company. What does that mean? I'm so curious. Can you spill some tea?
Sure. Yeah. So density of duration is a name that a friend gave my in name only production company. I don't have an LLC or anything. This is in name only, but I've been using it for about 15 years now. And density over duration came out of a time when I was talking to another independent queer filmmaking friend of mine, and she said, why aren't you making features, right? Like, why you just be making shorts? Everybody wants to make a feature. Why haven't you made a feature? And I said, well, I prefer density over duration. And she said, oh, that should be the name of your production company.
Absolutely. That's really great.
Yeah.
Well, we would love to know, Ray, are you drinking anything this morning? Are you?
Sorry, I actually do have coffee, but I'm so embarrassed. I'm in the Midwest, so I did not go. We do have independent coffee and tea houses here. However, I have like
Oh,
this corporate sort of Seattle coffee here.
we have in Seattle. We have no idea what you could
So
possibly be talking
here's
about.
my water.
No clue.
So
What company could you possibly be talking about, Ray?
No idea. No clue.
Huh.
I don't know.
No clue. Maybe they'll be partners with us one day. That would be cute.
Maybe
yeah.
when they
We
get
have
their
no
act
idea.
together.
Yeah. Coop, what are you drinking this morning? What is your hot of the morning?
I have my Coop. Isn't that
Wow, branded. Okay.
So I work at North Seattle, on North Seattle campus, and when I worked in EDI, they were so amazing. I worked for a very short stint there, and they gave me this up to say thank you for all the work that I've been doing with them. Right?
Wow, and it's a good size too. That's a good.
No, it's a mug. It's like it's like, here's my head. Here's the cup.
That's
Like,
the way
right?
we like it. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a full 20 ounce.
Yes.
It's a 20 ounce.
Yes.
That's a really full mug, Cooper. And you know what? That thing that you're using to drink coffee out of ain't bad either.
Nicely done.
Yes. Okay, Mocha. What do you got over there? What are you sipping on? What's your choice?
Contrary to my namesake, I am drinking tea, and it's throat comfort tea to, make sure I keep my vocal cords ready for all the interstitial singing that I like to do.
Yeah, karaoke's coming. Don't worry. Stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying it in a antique Francoma mug.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a treasured find for me, so I enjoy it.
Nice.
Wow.
Udamus.
I like to rub it against my face like this.
Well, 2 for 1 there. Maybe 3.
Right?
Like some facial, some heat relaxation, and some drinking.
Or we could call it stemming, and never mind. That's also good.
Exactly. Some anxiety disorder.
Yeah. Like,
Grounding.
I mean,
All of it.
manage it the way you do, and really, quite frankly, that voice it's the broadcast voice that must be nurtured. So yes, own that.
Own that, cherish that. Yes. I know Maddie's got Maddie's got literal tea.
I am a tea head, so I have my big old teapot. I got my little teacup with our zodiac signs on it. I am drinking malty Assam black tea this morning with cardamom pods.
Wow. I know. Why was that what we did? Yes.
So, yes.
So
Go home there, Maddie. Always the quiet ones. Never mind.
It's always those quiet ones. They come out. Yes.
Yes. I love my tea. I love to sip her. Love the morning ritual of the tea. I know a lot of coffee people feel the same way about making their coffee, but yes, putting the tea in the pot, boiling the water, cracking the cardamom pods. Beautiful.
Have you learned the secret of cardamom pods? Do you want to know the secret of cardamom pods?
Yes.
So this is a Caribbean secret around cardamom pods, okay?
Oh, please tell me.
Yeah, and it actually also occurs in that wonderfully lesbianic film. Well, it has lesbianic moments, Kama Sutra, but Yeah, you can take those pods once they've been soaked properly in your tea. When you crack them open, don't let them all release. And then you take out the little black seeds and chew on them. And that is that is so everything. And then find your partner. They will love that.
Well then.
Yeah.
Well
Okay,
then.
that is some fresh tea
That
for
is
the
some
morning.
fresh tea. That
Fresh
is some
tea.
fresh. They
That's
said
morning
you
tea
will find
for
your
you.
partner after
Morning
that.
kick.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Dot.
Just find your partner.
Enough
Just
said.
find your partner. Enough said. Mhm.
Enough said.
She
Perfect.
deserves a little something. You know.
Oh my god.
See, this is when morning time comes out. People say it's after dark, but I think it's also right when that sun comes up. It's right when you're just feeling a little fresh and you're just like, whew, what could happen today? What could happen today? This is definitely that time. If I haven't had a coffee by now, I'm my coffee is life. Okay, nectar of the goddesses.
Right.
Put a tap in me. My life is complete. The moment that oat milk came out, that was my life
was
changer.
over.
It's over. But at home, I definitely have to use like the coconut with sweet cream because it's just, I've finessed it. I can almost not go get coffee anywhere else at this point because I just love my coffee so much. But when I do, I'm like, okay, who's got lavender? Who's got the oat? And we're going to treat ourselves today. And so I did the station this morning on Beacon Hill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
They're
Good
fantastic. I was
choice.
like, early. We're going to make it. We're going to get this coffee right before tea time because, I just needed I always need that little kick. This personality, she is a little extra. So the coffee partners quite well.
I actually
We lost Deb. Deb isn't back yet. I'm so sad.
Yeah, we are sad that we lost
boo.
Deb. But if Deb
I
comes
know.
back, Deb is just a part of this entire thing regardless. And we absolutely love her. And so we'll still talk about all of the greatness that Deb showed. Yes. Ray, what were you about to say? I heard some.
Well, I was about to do a little bit of show and tell because I did go and grab like outside coffee today, but hold just 1 second there.
Show and tell is my favorite thing on the earth.
So I'm half.
Wow.
So this is the way I make coffee. My dad, first generation Italian American, so espresso every single morning.
Yeah.
People are like, your coffee's a little strong, Ray. That's the way coffee's supposed to be.
You're supposed to taste it.
It's supposed to actually kick your butt. That's the point. It's coffee.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's my show and tell is over.
Oh my gosh. I'm like
I
road
love
trip
that.
to Ray's for Real Coffee. Yes.
Right? Ray's for Real Coffee. That's actually a thing. You just branded Ray.
Listen, I'm like, what was it the other day? We branded Ray because of a superhero. What was it? And being able to shine brights on other people and spotlight other people and be able to just elevate and highlight. And it's Ray. It's just Ray. I just call it out. It's all
Ray's
Ray.
for Real Coffee.
Ray's for Real Coffee.
Density over what now?
Deb!
Because we have
In and out.
Okay, well, we'll dive into and start talking about some films and we'll start getting into that. But absolutely so excited and also simultaneously sad that Deb is here and then gone. Okay, well, we love you wherever you are in the ether.
I know, Deb is like in bad transport accident.
Yes.
I know, right?
Maddie, did you have something that you wanted to ask too, or no?
Yes, I was rewatching Ray, your film, and Deb's The More Things Change this morning to refresh my memory. And something that came out for me just watching those right next to each other was the way that they're in conversation about the city trans experience and the rural trans experience, and how there's sort of this idea that the city trans experience is easier or you're safer or, you don't experience as much transphobia, but that just isn't true. It's not a lot of people's real lived experience. And so I just wanted to bring up that sort of conversation and see what you and Mocha and Coop all had to contribute about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of what came out when I ended up talking to rural transgender subjects. It's also, I think it's important to say about my film, Put the Brights On, that it's like a particular weird thing about Minnesota that you're seeing, because in Minnesota, like the urban is Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then rural is like everything else outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul, or at least that's the way people in Minneapolis, St. Paul think about it. But, so where I live is actually sort of a college town, small city, but it is rural in many ways. It's kind of politically rural, culturally rural in a lot of senses. And, but some of the people here do not think of themselves as rural. So like a lot of what came up when I was doing the interviews is just like, how do you think of yourself? Like when it comes to rural or urban, and and how are other people in the other side of things positioning you as rural or urban, whether you are actually rural or urban or not. So anyway, but yeah, there are plenty of transgender people who live in rural environments who don't get harassed, and a lot of the subjects of my film actually found it from their experience of being in both urban and rural environments, felt like, in a rural environment, you're actually just often kind of taken as who you are, without it having to be a whole conversation about identity, So,
Yeah.
And that's refreshing for some people. It's a sense of freedom, and it's a sense of, just being able to be in a certain sense. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was really struck by your aesthetic choices. When you in Put the Brights On, and I one it's to me, and I don't know if this is what you intended, but to me it registered as kind of point and counterpoint. Like you were saying a thing where you had subjects saying a particular thing, and then it was like that thing needed to be revisited, and it was like that thing, like you were every image was echoing in moments, or had standing still in moments, really experimental, um like documentary, and yet had its own interior commentary that set off the what the subjects were saying. I don't know, so I'm curious to know how you were thinking about the aesthetics.
Yeah, that's interesting, Cooper. Thanks for noticing that, because that's actually a thing in the film, which is that, originally, so the film was grant funded, and originally it was, my proposal was to, head out with DSLR and film and record my subjects. And I had done all of these standalone audio interviews, and then COVID happened last March. And so all of the shooting that I was going to do was completely derailed. So I ended up just editing it together as an audio piece, and it played on the radio here briefly at our local PBS affiliate station. And then I just went out, and I shoot 16 millimeter and regularly anyway. So I went out and shot some black and white 16 and color Super 8 after the fact and edited them together. But didn't really try to, I really wanted the visuals and the audio to actually be really separate and to have sort of a conversation between the two of them. So, and in that way, I think that's partly like the visuals are my voice as the filmmaker, and the audio are my subject's voice sets. So it ends up being a conversation where, as a filmmaker, I'm, talking as well, to a certain extent. So,
yeah, brilliantly done. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to hear it on those terms. Really shine, and it allows the viewer to sort of interpret these two narratives simultaneously and then separately, right? So it does make you want to watch and then rewatch, and kind of forces us to sort of listen differently, hear differently. Thank you. It was really well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Excellent dialectical filmmaking and contrapuntal use of sound. Way to go, Ray.
And that's
Thank you, Dr. Harrop.
So the other thing I want to say about experimental filmmaking is that I feel like, we do things like hey, I'm having a conversation between the visual and the audio, but I think experimental filmmaking gets read as pretentious or artsy or like academic and all of that kind of stuff a lot, and just because we do play around with stuff like that, and I feel like, honestly, I'm probably like the least artsy person I know. Like, I love like flat out, first run feature industry films. It's not what I do specifically. But I really have to say thank you to Translations for having an experimental program, and recognizing the fact that if we're out here talking about the fact that non-dominant gender presentation and non-dominant sexuality presentation should be acknowledged and loved, then we also have to have a conversation about how non-industry based and non-narrative based filmmaking has to be acknowledged and loved, right? Like, we are not the norm, and nor do we want to be the norm. So at least speaking for myself, humbly speaking for myself, I don't want to be like the norm of a filmmaker. So
yeah, it's interesting. We had we were having a conversation yesterday morning and yesterday evening in the QT BIPOC. It turned into QT BIPOC Day. But in the QT BIPOC shorts program, Louise Sauton joined us from France, and made a piece as part of going to school, and they were telling the story about a kind of dominance in elite school where they determine what is art and what is not. And Louise went through the unfortunate experience of having their work which also could be considered experimental, because it's non-verbal narrative, but it's auditory narrative over, right? You saw it?
I saw it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, intimate, very intimate piece.
Yes.
And that story reminds me exactly of what you're saying. Like, their work is built in resistance, but in its own sort of conversation with the viewer. I mean, it's called a conversation,
right.
And it's right, and it's built exactly in similar terms. Like, it's a resistive moment to the dominant narratives, both around body and around image making, simultaneously. Right?
Well, and this is so similar to our communities, right? If we think about drawing out these themes and societally, and queer and trans communities across the board, whether we identify with our binaries or whether we're on spectrums or where we land, but folks don't always want to be the norm, right? We're trying to break out of the norm. The norm has been put on us, and perhaps the norm is just not actually at all. There isn't a norm, right? That's
Right.
right. We're
That's
trying
a good point.
to recognize that there isn't a norm because we are all our norm.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that we can do. And that still even also ties to, right, Coop, you had said that watching put the brights on more than one time, and it forces you to listen and pay attention and shift perspective and all of these things. That is also life, right? The first experience we have is going to be impacted by the perspective of which we're in that moment, how our day is gone, what other things have happened, who's talked to us and when, whether we've been isolated or been able to communicate with folks or how that's felt. How many spoons we've got left in our day, right? And sometimes it takes revisiting. Sometimes it's not this year and it's next year, and I can read something and understand it completely different because I've changed, or I'm ready and willing to listen or hear, right? So there's those two different things, but these are big life topics, right? This is what it is. That's why film is beautiful, is because it's like, we're not all the same. We are all different, and it's glorious and artistic and creative and magical. And it speaks to so many people, even if you have no idea that it does.
Yeah.
Right.
But this festival, I mean, I have to say, I know I've said this a couple times, but I have been making films, but I have like a really long gap with this festival. Like, I had a film in translations in 1999, and now I'm back in 2021. So I have been like making films, but I'm not. Before I moved here to Minnesota, I spent 18 years in San Francisco, and that's where I started hormonal and surgical transition in like the mid 90s. So it's also, and I know I said this earlier, but it's been a really great experience for me having a pass this festival to be able to reconnect, and also to see this festival really like honor some of the history, like really incorporate the history of West Coast trans culture. Like I had films in the original Tranny Fests in 1996, 97, 98 that was started by my friend Christopher Lee, who was an icon, an amazing person. And then that became the San Francisco Transgender Film Festival, and is still running now, of course. And seeing Generation, I really had to watch Generation, of course, because I actually am in Gendernauts, but not as a main subject. I just, like Monica Troit, came with her cameras to the Tuesday Tom Waddell Clinic in San Francisco, which was the free care hormonal clinic in San Francisco. There's actually a whole other documentary about that. But Monica was there with her crew one night, so I ended up having like one line in Gendernauts. So, but I know Stafford, I know Max, I know, and I've met Susan Stryker, and the only person I really don't know in that film is Sandy Stone, and of course she's just brilliant. But it was just really great for me to be able to like kind of reconnect history, and also to see James Green and No Ordinary Man, and to really just great to be able, and also I'm sorry to keep going, but
give us more.
Build the tea, yo.
Trans Joy, the short doc on the Transgender March in San Francisco, which was so well done, and all of the sort of very careful, like deliberate decisions made by the community to make the Trans March inclusive and not just a white male event, was just like, and Cecilia, I know. And so it's just so good to be able to see all of that history come together and acknowledge, kind of. So, I mean, plus just a lot of other brilliant, hilarious, and fun new work. So, I really appreciate this festival a lot. So thank you.
That's really heartwarming, and it's and you brought up these two sets of films together, and of course we had Nico Stormont with Sandy, with Susan Stryker and Scott Schofield, Scott T. Schofield, sorry, and and there we were in generation with each other, having conversation precisely in the ways that you're talking about. It's really, really great to hear that that you were there. You were there at the time. You were in what is it that wonderful Annie Sprinkle calls San Francisco the clitoris of the U.S.
Yes.
I love her so
Yeah,
much.
small but powerful.
Right? Like,
I need to go there now.
right? It's just like, oh my goodness, that is like so everything. And to be able to have the counterpoint and revisit where it is now and what's happening now, and then introducing Nico to their predecessors, right?
Yeah.
In an interesting way, and hear how it felt for Nico to feel like there was a starting over. There had to have been something, Nico
Yeah.
said, but it had been so eradicated because of gentrification that it was almost like it didn't exist.
That's
right. So
that's
it's
right.
astounding. It's astounding, and it's also the function of festivals like this one, be able to pull that history back to the fore and create a new conversation that is actually a conversation already. And actually, that was, Mocha, that was your idea to pull that together. So thank you. That was really great. It was really
welcome. Yeah, and we have that as part of. Can you see that if you watch Generation? Is that it, Maddie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyone who has a pass or a ticket to Generation can catch that Trans Histories panel, which, I was in the process of uploading, watching it, and hearing all that wisdom come out. And that's definitely something that's always on my mind, is how do we connect back to the people who have been doing this work before and not try and reinvent every 10 years, every 5 years. I think it's important for us as queer and trans people, especially, to learn about the struggles of other people who came before us and sort of like learn from that, and not just go into it being like, okay, I'm making it up, I'm just doing it myself, and connect in community with those people too, not just read about them online or watch films about them, but be in community with people who are older than you.
Yeah.
We're often so disconnected, and those disconnections are what furthers our inability to create change, right? Because there is erasure, because gentrification, because we can't, you have to search to find, but it is there. It is there, but you search to find, and it can be super painful to not know where to look, or to not be able to find, or not be able to see yourself and talk to somebody who has experiences that you could learn from, and that you could validate your own emotions, because oh wow, this is real, this has been happening, right? And like those pathways that have been forged before, and we're creating new ones, and we're widening, and it's just about the whole picture. It's about that. But if we can't find it, if we aren't showcasing it, then folks don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also, and I actually feel like our communities do this pretty well. But I think it's, really important to also say that older people also have something to learn from younger people as well. And one of the films that, it's obviously showcased here, but that I think did that remarkably well was No Ordinary Man, and I've heard, critique from somebody of my generation who was like, well, there are all these younger trans people who've just never heard of Billy Tipton and they've just heard about, and I was like, no. You have to realize that the film is about history and the way history changes for us culturally. Like, we have these knowledge of icons that is about a way of knowing that doesn't involve traditional research and doesn't even necessarily involve that you were there and you stood next to XYZ person. It just involves like that intergenerational conversation in some way. And I think the what Chase Joint and Amos Mack did with that film, bringing in like a whole slate of younger than me, possibly older than some other people, actors, FTM actors in LA who just like a range of amazing talent. And then having those actors, yes, if they were learning new things about Billy Tipton, through acting, they're learning it like viscerally and like emotionally. And you could see that. So we don't all just have to like know it all already,
And just want to add, co-directed by Aisling Chin Yu.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I should have done that. Yes.
I just want to give everybody their spotlight.
Thank you very much, Mocha. I appreciate the adjustment. Yes. Yes, it's anyway, brilliant film. And also I felt like a film that really did that generational conversation really, really well. Like, without, we don't need to listen to old people, they're burnt out, or we don't need to listen to young people, they weren't even there, which is, so it just felt like an actual real conversation, and loved that film for that. So yeah.
I love that you got all that texture from the film, all the layers, all that it had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brilliant film. Yeah,
I'm hoping that as even here and Ray, you're only moderately, I think. I don't, what, I'm not going to guess your age. Trans don't crack, so I didn't. I know black don't crack, but apparently trans don't crack neither. So I'm not going to try to guess your age, but we have a generational intergenerational representation to a great extent here, even on this panel. And what I'm kind of hoping is that as I'm aging up, right, that we continue to be a set of middle-aged, then into older generation people who do exactly what you're talking about, Ray, and that is be able to keep an ear open and keep our hearts and minds open. And Susan Stryker actually also said the same thing on that history panel, to be able to learn from that younger generation, whoever's coming up next is living a different experience, right? And an experience that might be based on the one prior, but we need to remember that there's a social pressure to create that erasure and obliterate, right? So they may or may not be living actively and in an aware way, based on a history. But it isn't it our jobs to be able to, one, encourage and support, and then two, reach into and say, there was this thing, there is this, you existed before, and I don't want you to have to do all the work we did. So you know what, here, like, I'm giving you the resources that I had and dug up and pulled forward, and I want to hear what now you have to say and how you're going to deal with it. What you're going to make it, right? Because it's always work, but just because I went through it doesn't mean you should have to go through the same thing. I want us to be the generation that says the opposite. I want to hear you and offer you, and let's grow. Because I don't want to stultify. I don't want to stop growing. Excuse me? No.
yeah.
I am not interested. Where's Dab? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, but like exactly what you're saying, it's here, I'm just like, because it's true, right? Like those are things that, right. I'm millennial Landia, and folks older have taught me so much, but it's also been access to those folks, right? Who has access to learn the knowledge, to ask the questions, and how much energy is able to be given when so much energy has been pulled out as you get older.
Yeah.
And so I'm just glad that has come up again, because that's still something that folks are searching for, right? In workplaces, in clubs, in bar, wherever we find each other.
Right.
Oftentimes it's in festivals, right? We're searching for community, and it's so personal. I mean, even here, this is our job, but it's personal, professional, right? It's close to the heart. It means the entire world to many of the folks. I mean, to me, right? So to many of the folks who serve in spaces like this. And there are so many resources that exist now. There's language now that had been created over time that I've had access to. And then there's stuff that I've never learned, and things that I'm learning, that I'm seeing and learning from folks ahead of me and seeing shown to me by folks younger, and realizing, okay, well, then these are the pathways. These are the things that feel good to us and are freeing and allow us to be aligned with ourselves and our communities and feel flexible enough to shift that and change that when it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And that's truly what it is being able to have the freedom to change and shift, and recognize that some folks don't. But because we have each other, and because we're able to have some of these conversations, that allows us to feel connected when we're not feeling connected.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right. And so as we continue to grow together, we feel lonely. Like it feels lonely. We're all virtually connected. Half of everyone here I've never met in person ever.
That's true, actually.
We've never actually met. I've met Maddie,
Right. Yeah. And I've met Mocha. And
exactly. Right. But I already feel so close to each of you. Yes, you're a ghost. Deb is ethereal. You're there.
Oh, I love your ghost emoji.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, Deb, we love you. Thank you for popping in.
Yes, we missed you. We've been so
Your
excited to see you all week.
You're like a Gen X person, so you're part of the conversation. Mocha and I are also Gen X. You're like, where's our other Gen X rep? Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to dwell on kind of the generational astrology stuff, because part of me thinks that the whole boomer, Gen X, millennial, Gen Z stuff is way broad and not enough nuance there. But you have to say
all marketing.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's all marketing.
It's all marketing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. As is literally our lives.
But I got to say that, so I actually teach, I teach undergrads. And I do see that, the people who are 18 to 24 right now, who are queer, they have so many more, they are dealing with so many different things, not only just from, hi Maddie, not only just the world, but the last administration. When I was in high school and college, I didn't have people trying to kill me in charge of the country, so, or maybe I did, but it wasn't as obvious as it has been in the last 4 years. So, so I think young people today, truly young people today, just feel, with things beyond what I ever had to deal with. So there is a little bit of like, yeah, I did a lot of work that you can benefit from, but there's also a whole heck of a lot of, appreciate, like, respect. You're going through like a lot of things that nobody should have to go through like right now. So
Yeah.
Maddie, talk about you specifically.
I know, it's so interesting. And then I even look back at the people who are younger than I, who are like going through high school and all this stuff, when I was going through it in college. And, I'm like, I don't even know what Gen whatever I am. I'm like in between, more of the older Gen Z. Like, I don't have a TikTok or anything. Don't really get that. I'm like, what are the kids doing these days? I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, it's so wild how, I just think about how rapidly our world is changing every day. And, as much as we can lean on each other to go through it is going to be the way, I think. As much as we can create community with each other and learn from each other.
Yeah.
And just process the craziness that happens every single day together.
Yeah.
And it needs to be out in the open. It has to be, right? Like, so many things were just not talked about, swept under the rug. Our lives are being affected and policies are being made, but we don't maybe know, or we're not, like some people are talking about it, but it's not enough people. And now it's like, because we have access to the internet and we can be empowered enough to ask somebody to Google it when they ask us a question that we don't have to answer. That's empowering in and of itself, right? To be like, oh, I don't need to explain my identity because here is the Google. Here you go. Please do that, right?
So Urban Dictionary.
Please, right? Like, just start somewhere. And then come to me with questions, because you've shown investment, right? Yeah. But there's that access to information that has allowed us, some of these differences, and allowed us to have conversations across the board that some folks were choosing to ignore, that we cannot ignore. Ignorance is a choice now, almost. There are many places still where access to the internet is not necessarily attainable, but it's becoming less frequent. And that means that it's now a choice to not know.
Well, our current administration, speaking of policy, our current administration is one of their goals to make sure that that we have the real democracy of internet strength distribution. Now, I don't want that to compromise environmental issues and building towers in spaces where,
we need an earth to live on in order to keep going.
Yeah, like we need to maintain a population and our safety and our waterways and our et cetera. But,
honor where we've come from.
But like speak of rural versus urban, and its actual sort of lack of that interplay is really important.
Yes.
And you don't want to saturate a rural space with what the so-called urban space is so good at doing, and that is commodifying and selling itself as the norm, but actually the opposite, and recreating a conversation that remains diverse, right? That opens spaces and allows access, but also allows cultural influence from what we call smaller, narrowed, or marginal spaces that were not recognized as mapped. And Ray, I'm sort of speaking your language. I don't want to take the conversation from you, so I don't know if you have.
No, it's. I was just going to agree with that. Certainly, internet access, broadband access is like a huge issue, a huge rural issue, a huge rural equity issue. And, there are so many rural parts of the country that, haven't had like any I also grew up partly in southern Vermont, in a part of the country that was very rural when I grew up there, like dirt road, et cetera, et cetera. And my family, my grandparents still on the other side, still had a house there that, I would go and visit there even after I had a cell phone, and, would have to like walk down to the end of the driveway and like hold up my cell phone because there are mountains and like no broadband, So, and when you're in a situation like that, it's like that, though, having people not have access to the internet in 2021 means those people are really left out. They are really left behind, and it's a huge issue. So, so that's something that I agree with needs to be looked at and is being looked at. And I don't know. I mean, the whole conversation about that or as an environmental hazard, I don't think, here locally that the issue of it being an environmental hazard isn't being looked at as much, and I think that that's also an issue that when you get out into rural areas, there's so much less money put into any type of infrastructure that, or, administration that, things just there aren't these conversations happening about things going on. It's just kind of like, oh, do you have the internet? No, I don't. What about you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There aren't these sort of broader, more theoretical discussions going on. So,
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect time to just call up our Indigenous ancestors, current folks that are doing such important, vital work and have been for so many communities, for Indigenous communities, for our land, for forever, right? Have been our caretakers of the land, which we are all privileged to be on. And I'm in Seattle right now, and so I will just acknowledge that this is Duwamish land, and that when you're looking, you can look up in your location, because we're viewing from across many different spaces in this country and other countries. But in this country, if you look up native-land, which I think was put up below,
Yep.
.ca, perfect. I was looking at my website to make sure that I wrote it down correctly. But that is an opportunity for folks to look at whose land you're on right now, and you can connect to many resources locally on how you can give back and be able to do a little bit more than recognize. For Seattle area, if you are on realrentduwamish.org is a way to fiscally pay rent for the space that we're taking, and really want to acknowledge that societally we could do a better job of really honoring the voices that have been doing such magical work and leading the way, and are continuing to do that work to this day in Seattle. Everywhere, but very locally, there have been many conversations that have been being had with new pipelines being made, and who's funding it, and where we're putting our energies as we kind of move into a new era, 2021. And we're looking at information and really being conscious in a different way. I think there's accountability we can start to take and demand, and be able to bring community together to do so.
yes, agreed. And I am not good at the actual names of these, but certainly here where I am is Lakota, Dakota, and Ojibwe territory. And, there are reservations half an hour from where I am. Standing Rock is about an hour and a half away. So, this is Northern Plains territory. And certainly there have been large conversations, protests happening about the pipeline, but also just continued environmental discussions here. And, and I am not even pretending to be the best person to speak about those conversations. I mean, certainly if anybody's interested, about those conversations, if they look me up, I could connect them to people that I know, but I am not going to be probably the best person to speak about that myself.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you're owning that is also good. And then I think it's a controversial thing to say, but I think one, we are in Asian American and API Pacific Islander History Month. We are able to acknowledge the lands that we're on, and we have a history in the U.S. of building our. And I will say this as somebody who's also Canadian, that it also happens in Canada. Don't be fooled. I know everybody wants to move to Canada, but it happens there too. And what I'm suggesting is that the reparation begins in an individual level, right? That we acknowledge, that we celebrate, that we honor these kinds of intercultural intersectionalities, and that we're able to do the things that we're able to do guilt-free for the sake of that activities, for the sake of collaboration and honoring those people whose lives were lost and who continue to live. Right. So I've been doing some personal research and figuring out where my First Nations ancestry, as somebody who's Caribbean, and understand that Arawaks and Caribs were wiped out. And there's only one tribe left, and it's in one island, and that was completely because they were a resistance force. So, big ups to them. And these are the kinds of sets of research I think we need to start to do, to understand what are these points of connection and what is it, how do I interpret that, and how do I make that my part of my narrative, right? Like those are important stuff.
Yeah. And I think that honestly is probably a very great way for us to leave folks with that message of, we've brought a lot of amazing topics up, including the Google. And don't spill your tea, Coop. Don't spit it out just yet. We're almost over, but don't spit it out just yet. But I think that is an opportunity we've provided for folks is to engage in films that we're showing because of what we're learning, but also how we feel, to be able to research where you are, how can you personally positively impact and create change, whether that means conversations with somebody in your immediate orbit, in your workplace, with yourself, right? And she said, yes, start with yourself. She said, yes, you better go. You read that book, Glenn Coco. So anyways, yes, we're all so strongly feeled about Googling things. Anyways, my child is being very vocal right now. But yeah, I think that really does allow us to bridge some of these conversations and be able to have beautiful ones such as this and really
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. That was perfect. Well, happy Mother's Day to all of our chosen mothers and mothers that are out there. Being a mother is definitely an identity that is chosen. And we appreciate all of you on this beautiful day. Evie? And I'm like, motherhood, be quiet, child.
So I'm letting you know that I'm not a mother, I'm a dama. That's what I call myself for my little pups who are quietly behaving only because they have blankets. That's just me.
Yes.
They have blankets.
Yes. Okay. We are in a new space today, so she's sensitive.
Okay.
She's hearing new sounds. She says,
needs your cuddle.
She learned things from mommy, and I am definitely mommy. Yeah, I'm definitely mommy. And then what, like fur mommy, that's the shirt that I have. Mommy fur days. Yeah. So, but we just really grateful for this beautiful conversation that you all have been bringing to us and that we've been able to be a part of. And it has been an absolute true treasure and pleasure to be able to get to know Ray. I feel like we've had many conversations over the last few days. And so I've personally been very excited to get to continue those and get to know you better. And of course, Mocha and Coop for leading us through this fantastic festival and being wonderful in setting up amazing programs. The shorts and the features are out of this world. And so if you have not had a chance yet, please, 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 please take a time to check that out. We have the last day pass is $10 off. And if you do purchase a pass today, you will have 72 hours to watch, or tickets. You have 72 hours to watch that will go through. What day is that? Wednesday? Tuesday? Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Perfect.
Depends on
We wear
what time.
pink on Wednesdays. And if you do, take a picture and tag us. Wink.
And thanks so much to you, Alana and Maddie, for all of your operations and development magic.
Yes.
Thank you.
You pulled it out. Put your foot in it, girls.
Everywhere.
And really, we have to thank all of our volunteers who contributed all the way along and stood by us the whole way through. We couldn't do it without you. We couldn't do it without our sponsors. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Your sponsors really allowed us to just have as much freedom with this year. And the more we grow, the more we can just all of our festivals and all of our programs, because we're year round now. And so we really want to be able to showcase amazing films throughout that entire time and bring people together. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the festival. You still got a little bit of time. And feel free to hang out with us and call us and text us and email us and find us in the socials.
Yes. And we also have another live event. Our last live event is this evening. Our Trans Mass Creatives panel will be streaming right here on Translations Facebook and $3 Bill Cinema YouTube at 5 p.m. So make sure to catch that. We have some wonderful creators from the festival, including from No Ordinary Man, which we talked about today. So catch your last little bit of translations. Thank you all so much for being with us here today. And yeah, I hope to talk with everyone again soon. This was such a great convo.
Thanks, guys.
Amazing.
Break a leg tonight, Mocha. Yay.